Welcome back to Thriving in Love podcast, a podcast that challenges the status quo so couples can thrive as their authentic selves. Today on the show, I am so excited to introduce Devon. She is a homesteader, an author, and obsessed with all things healing. Devon, hi, welcome. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's surreal. I'm so happy to be here.
I have been diving into your manuscript. It is so juicy and so good. I love that you go into detail about your old marriage and then how you met your current partner. And it's so like scandalously romantic. And I love it. It's so good. Love the
My
honesty.
journey, and I think that transparency hopefully will help other people.
I love it. How did you start your healing journey? Or like, what was the moment that you knew that the life that you were living was not it?
I started having really bad anxiety after I gave birth to my second child. I have two boys, and they're 6 and 9 years old now. But after I gave birth to my first child, I just started having really bad anxiety. And I knew at the time I had done enough personal work that I was like, okay, I'm not I I'm not against medication, but I know that I'm not going to just use medication. I know that this anxiety is trying to teach me something. And so I started getting to the root of, why does my body feel unsafe? What is it trying to tell me? And so, one thing really led to another, which was really, what prompted me on the journey. So I always say the anxiety was a gift.
Wow, that's amazing. And your curiosity was a gift. I think a lot of people try to push it away and try to stay
Mhm.
quote unquote normal and just keep functioning in society as these pill popping people who, are not really getting to the root. So, what was it about your journey specifically where you started to ask yourself, or have you always just been like a curious person?
Yeah, I do think that the curiosity helped. I'm a learner, so I love reading books and listening to podcasts and just exploring about myself. I majored in psychology when I was in school, so I love understanding about what makes people tick.
Mm,
And so yeah, I
yeah.
think that was part of it was just like I've always had this, insatiable desire to just learn more, do better, improve upon myself. But it was really the anxiety that stopped me in my tracks and was like, whoa, like I am supposed to be the professional here. I've studied mental health, I've studied psychology. I'm supposed to have it put together,
Right.
but like this is out of my control.
And then what were the beginning steps that you started to look into to help with your anxiety?
So I believe that we all go through life and we pick up, what you might want to call them imprints. So we have our blueprint, which is how we're born. And, I think we kind of come into this world with a certain level of wholeness. And then through life, through our upbringing, through institutions, through our culture, we take on things. I mean, I think it's up until you're 7 years old basically everything that you learn, your brain just stores as truth. And so those are sort of what's running in the background of our life and leading our decisions that we're making today if we don't take the time to like unearth and heal our emotional history. So for me, it was a couple of things. It was definitely therapy. I think it does help to have a therapist that can help
Yeah.
you safely work through some of those things. I started doing a lot of journaling. I was just committing every day. If I have 15 minutes, in the morning that I can just start journaling, I'm going to do that because I knew that there was some like, not so great subconscious beliefs that were probably driving a lot of things in my life, still probably driving my anxiety, but I really wanted to get to the core of
Yeah.
what are those things and how do I heal from it.
Yeah. No, it's so similar with me too. I just started journaling and that I feel like that for me was the first moment where I was like, whoa, I have like a whole person inside of me that I've never even allowed to explore and like talk to and like hang out with. I think journaling is such an incredible tool. What was the moment for you where you knew that you had to completely shift your life? Because I know from what I've read or from what I've heard about your story, it's like it seems like you had this moment where you had a 5-year-old dream of being a farmer and like how did the homesteading start?
Yeah, well, I always, and I have these pieces of paper with me. So I feel like for me, this was the pivotal moment. And I have a women's group that I was attending once a month. And the theme of that month was heart's deepest desire. You know, we were in this meditation and I was lying there and she was guiding us through and she asked us, what is your heart or your soul's deepest desire? And out of nowhere, just immediately, I heard to be cherished. And it really caught me off guard. And I was like, I didn't know how I felt about that, but I knew it reverberated so true for me. And I was not in a situation in my life where
Wow.
I was being cherished. And so I was like, I don't know how this is going to show up, but like I just started believing that I deserved it and being open to it. And so that is, you know, if you read the book, that definitely showed up for me in a big way, not how I expected. But from there, you know, I just started realizing that, you know, life is so brief and fragile that we need to spend the time doing things that really light us up and bring us joy because we don't get a second chance at it. This is it. So I think that's where the homesteading came in. It just gradually crept in on me because, you know, as a child, I wanted to be a farmer. And then I used to joke and laugh at myself about that. So I think I'm making my inner child very happy these days.
That's so incredible. And I don't know about you, but I had a time where, like, you go deep into that inner child healing before you can
Mhm.
allow that inner child joy, or was it different for you?
Well, I have an example of this that I think would be great for everybody to do. And I was working with sort of a healer that when I was in my new relationship, you know, after my divorce, she was like, you know, have you allowed yourself to really grieve and, you know, fully feel things? And she recommended that I go someplace, you know, in nature or somewhere where I had some solitude and that I write a letter to my 5-year-old self and acknowledging, you know, what we had to go through as a kid to, you know, survive and, you know, gain love and acceptance and how that shaped us and to appreciate that part of ourselves, that inner child, but say that, you know, now I'm here, I'm an adult, I can take care of you. I'm going to ensure that, you know, we're not going to abandon ourselves like this again. So I do think there is a component of reconciling with your inner child before maybe necessarily you start to really bring out more of that fun, playful side.
Were you already married when you had that moment of solitude and you had that experience, or were
I
you,
was,
you said you were freshly dating?
yeah, recently divorced, and when I had begun seeing Christian, you know, it was something I was doing for my own personal work. Yeah.
I love that. Do you feel like you doing the work that you're doing in your personal life helped you call in a relationship like the one you have now?
Yes, and you know, I struggle with that a little bit because I don't think we have to be this perfectly healed whole person to be in a relationship,
Agreed.
but I do know that I changed my energy and my expectations. And it was almost like changing a radio frequency. Like that's what I started attracting back to me.
Literally.
Yeah. And it was like, I know it probably doesn't happen like this for most people, but it almost happened immediately, you know, which again may or may not be the case for people. But for me, it was like, it was such a powerful shift that when I started really, because I had this like core belief of like not enough. So if you really believe you're not enough, you're going to attract people and situations that reflect that back to you. And so when I like really changed that, when I became aware of it and I flipped that script, yeah, things started changing quickly for me.
How did you begin that shift? Because I agree with you 100%, and it was my same experience as well. So I
Yeah,
believe everything that you're saying right now.
love it. That's why I must love your podcast because I'm listening to it and I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
If you want to quantum leap, you want to change your life, you have to change your frequency. And you do that by changing the energy that you absorb and that you exude in all of it.
Yeah, there was a song that again, my women's group, which I think if you can find a supportive group of people that can really help propel you along, and that was my women's group. And there was a playlist that she gave to us, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the group Beautiful Chorus. But they have music that is just like
No, I don't think so.
mantras. Yeah, they're like mantras that they sing over and over
Mm.
again. And there was this one song that was, I see myself in joy and love. I know myself. I am enough. And I just remember listening that into that in the car, and I was just like crying, but like it's because I felt it, I was like that's true. Like I see myself enjoying love, and yes, I
Yeah.
am enough. And it just for that for me, like it was like a flip switch. I started believing it.
How did you find your women's group? For anyone out there that may be wondering, where can they even find one?
Yes, where do these people hang out, right? Like,
Yeah, literally.
I hurt my back. I threw out my back, and so I went to see an acupuncturist, and I'd never done acupuncture before. And this my acupuncturist is lovely, and she had started really this whole community of healers, and so she was leading a wild women's project circle, and so I still think that those
Hmm.
groups are happening today. They circle around like the new moon, and there's different themes, and so probably the wild women's project would be one way if you're a woman, obviously, but I know that there's groups for all kinds.
I do feel like the universe is like puppeteering our way to like finding what we need in the moments that we need it. And as long as you're staying open minded and curious to, like, you easily could have been like, no, I don't believe in acupuncture. But you allowed yourself to have that curiosity and that openness that led you there. And it was the
Yes.
beginning of this entire transformation. That's so cool. So I want to go into your previous marriage versus the one you have now. And what are some like core differences that you feel in this relationship compared to the previous relationship?
I feel like it's the emotional health of the two partners in the relationship, because I do think that in some aspects, like people, you need two partners that are willing to be self-aware and do the emotional healing work. Because if one partner is doing it, I'm not saying that's, and the other partner's not, not saying like that's it, you should get a divorce, because I know every situation is tremendously different. But I use love languages as an example. Like a lot of people talk about the love languages, and you need to get your partner to talk in your particular love language. But if a person is emotionally healthy, they're multilingual in love. Like they can do acts of service, or they can do words
Agreed.
of affirmation. And so I think I'm just with somebody who is
Yes.
emotionally healthy enough to speak those different love languages, because there's not some kind of unhealed emotional wound or what beliefs from the past that are blocking that flow of love.
I love how you said that, emotionally healthy person, because it's not about just like having it all figured out, but it's having that awareness to know that you can continue to grow and evolve and learn. And that's what healthy is, right? It's a practice that we do. Like, you don't just eat healthy once and then you're a healthy person. It is a practice, just like the emotional health. I love that it is a practice, right? Where you're continuously creating spaces within the relationship for both of you to continue that work. So, are there any relationship rituals or practices that you guys do to maintain that safe space emotionally?
Yeah. So I talk a little bit in my book about like this versus that. So a lot of times when we're being triggered by something, it's not even about what our partner's doing. So I think we've gotten good about like when we're feeling upset about something, just saying like, I'm feeling this way. And I think this might be where this is coming from. And just being honest with
Yeah.
that person, like just having an awareness that a lot of the time when you're upset and triggered, it's about what your partner did and like the millions of other things that have happened to you in your life. So just like kind of having that consciousness is really important.
And have you always had that, or is this something new that you have in this relationship compared to your previous one?
Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend like I was just the, perfect partner in my previous marriage. I've developed that. I've developed the ability to sit with like a trigger or uncomfortable feelings, and not necessarily react, but kind of understand where's this coming from, and being able to communicate that to my partner. And you have to have a partner obviously that's receptive to hearing that as well.
No, definitely. So, how did that practice start? Because I also went through a similar journey of emotional awareness and learning how to regulate my emotions. And for me, it took me, I feel like just now I'm feeling so good. Like lately, every time I feel triggered, I'm able to process it quicker versus before I would need like a week to go and like journal and process. Or
Right.
like, what does it look like for you?
Yeah, I feel like what propelled that forward for me was for a year, I got away from talk therapy and I did somatic experiencing work. And so I learned more to notice things in my body first. And so those are
Yeah.
the early telltale signs that like your alarm system's going off. So like if for me, like I have this belief or had this belief that I still deal with, that I'm responsible for other people's emotions. So if my partner, my husband, just happens
Yes.
to be in a bad mood around me, I automatically internalize that. And so if he's in a bad mood around me, I can start to feel what feels like tight in my chest, or, I feel it in my body first. And I start noticing my triggers first that way.
That's so fascinating. And like, how do you make sure that you're not absorbing that energy? Because I think it's like highly sensitive people,
Mhm.
we absorb a lot of other people's energy. And I think that's why we become people pleasers because everyone else's like happiness means that our body feels happy and safe. So, how do you detach from other people's emotions without it impacting you and your body?
That is a struggle still. I mean, if I could pick, and I do think like you said it perfectly, like people pleasers and highly sensitive people, yes, like we like that safety in our body is other people around us being happy. And so I love the way you said that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to come back to that.
I
Still,
mean, I feel like I control everyone around me so I feel good. And it's like, I think I'm like helping people and pleasing them when in reality, I'm kind of like manipulating them. I don't know.
oh, absolutely. It's kind of, we're not like this selfless, like really giving people, because in a way it's kind of selfish. It's like, I don't want to feel uncomfortable, so I need you to be happy around me. But
Exactly. And I noticed that I gaslight my husband's emotions a lot because I don't want to absorb his negative energy. And
yeah,
that was a big learning thing for me. Like, the goal isn't to make each other happy, it's to make each other feel heard and seen and valued.
I was watching a video the other day because I still struggle with this. And I mean, when something really strikes a chord with me, like you'll know it because I'll be like crying. And the husband said, when I come home in a bad mood, it's not about my wife and it's not your job to fix me. It's your job to love me while I'm broken.
Oh, I love that. It's so true. I feel like that mental shift for me was huge because we want to help people. We want them to be happy. We want everyone around us to like, or we kind of just like make everything about ourselves. I don't know about you, but I would be like,
Mhm.
oh, like you said, it's not because of the wife. It's because I just need my wife to hold space. And like
Yeah.
so much of what I do and the work that I do is women wanting to feel emotionally connected to their partners so that they can have more intimacy in their relationships. But I think it starts with us creating an emotional safe space to even allow for our partners to share their vulnerabilities and honesty without it triggering us and us making it all about ourselves and trying to save them.
Yeah, I just simply tell myself somebody can be in a bad mood around me and it's not about me. And so I just have to live with that
Yes.
discomfort, and it's okay to have uncomfortable feelings. You don't have to respond to those uncomfortable feelings by trying to fix and manage the moods of everyone around you. So I think what does help for people like you and I is just recognizing it and feeling the discomfort that that brings up in you, but not feeling like you have to do anything about it.
How do you detach from that action? Because I feel like we're doers too.
Mhm, mhm. Oh, absolutely. I
And
had
just
a
like
therapist.
being okay with sitting in it.
Yeah, I had a therapist once that told me like I was kind of a bulldozer, like for wanting to fix my problems. And so that this was a couple years ago. So I'm like, yes, I think I've come a long way, but really, I think again, going back to the somatic experiencing therapy, it helped me build tolerance in my body for uncomfortable emotions and uncomfortable sensations,
Yeah.
and being able to sit with them.
Yes. And not respond just because our body is having a reaction,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. We don't have to fix it, and that's the thing is is I think that's why, you know, almost all of our culture is, you know, how do we get rid of pain? And sometimes, you know,
Mm.
healing is feeling the pain and letting it work its way through you on its own time.
And accepting it, right? And
Yeah.
allowing the human experience to just kind of be sucky sometimes and meeting it with acceptance versus trying to change everything and control everything.
Exactly.
And I think that's what goes into that surrender of like the feminine flow, right? It's like just
Mhm.
sometimes you ebb, sometimes you flow, sometimes, things suck, and sometimes I think that you don't experience pure joy without experiencing deep grief. And I think that the deeper you go, the higher you can go as well in our journeys. And I think that's why the healing journey is not linear and it's not like point A to point B. I think it's a very circular experience where we can go down and back up. And it's just like the higher vibrations and the lower vibrations, they're all important.
Yeah.
Just went on a little rant.
No, I'm 100% with
um,
you.
Okay, I do want to go back to the differences between the two marriages now that you have experienced. If you were to go back in time and tell your past self the red flags that you may have overlooked, what are some of those red flags?
Thinking about a quote in my book, you know, it was not my quote. I was quoting somebody else that says, "Don't marry potential, marry reality." And so I think that a lot of times, you know, especially codependents feel like they can fix or, you know, we want to see the potential and the best in people. So when something is really not working, we're not honest with ourselves. And so I think for me, like if I had been honest with myself, I would have known that my first husband, he wasn't going to be able to meet my needs emotionally and what I needed, but I wasn't honest with myself about that. And I was doing us both a disservice because a green flag is being able to just accept your partner for who they are and not have your future happiness shouldn't be hinging on them changing or not. You know, yes, we will change, yes,
Mm,
we will grow and evolve, but if you know, you have to be able to love and accept them exactly as they are without any expectation that there's something about themselves that they need to change. And so I think the red flag is going into a marriage or a committed relationship with the expectation that, you know, I need them to change in this particular way.
yeah, that's so beautiful. And I feel like as women, we do that a lot. Like, I know subconsciously, I
Mhm.
love to see people's like best self, right? And my husband always tells me, he's like, you can't like justify shitty behavior because you can understand why they are that way and how like you can see
Mhm.
the path forward for them to change and
Yeah.
grow and evolve. It's okay to meet people where they're at and accept them where they're at and think that that's just who they are and who they're going to be, and like knowing that not everyone even changes, honestly.
Yeah.
I
And
don't think not
maybe,
everybody grows.
yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, because if I had been honest with myself at the time, I mean, you know, I don't have any regrets about that marriage because I've got my two children from that marriage. So I'm not saying like I would go back and change anything, but had I been honest with myself, I would have known that that person wasn't going to be able to meet my needs emotionally, and I would have, you know, I would have moved on to a different relationship. And so I think that's like for people who are looking for that partner, that's solid advice. Like don't try to make it work when it's not. Like, you know, you can grow and
Yeah,
evolve
if it doesn't
together.
feel right, it's not right.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think that comes from self-trust and trusting our gut, trusting our emotions, trusting that what we feel is true and accurate, versus I think that in the past I've definitely been like, well, maybe like this fantasy of someone understanding me fully and completely doesn't exist. So how do you make sure that you're not, gaslighting yourself into being like, no, what you want doesn't exist, just settle for what you have? And like,
Yeah.
where does gratitude play into all of that too?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's tricky, but I do think that, you know, if you have, you know, this idea around what you want love to look like when it shows up for you, I would say, you know, don't settle for less, you know, but it has to come from a healed place because I mean, I'm not talking
Yes.
about, waiting for, some, imaginary partner to come fix you and save you. I mean, like, what do you want in a committed, partnership where somebody's going to meet you, and go all in together? So I think that it's important to not settle, if you're coming from a healed place. We can't expect everybody to fulfill all of our needs emotionally at all times. I mean, we're all human, but if you're doing the healing work and you're taking care of your emotional needs, like, I think, you should keep your standards high. And I think a lot of people do settle. So yeah, it's a tricky question, but I like, one of the things I talk about in my book a lot is don't settle. Like, if this isn't what you want, you're okay not in a relationship. So it's okay.
Yes, I agree. I'd rather be single and have the utmost peace and joy in my own life than be in a relationship where I'm not getting my emotional or mental or, physical or spiritual needs met.
Hmm.
Because what's the point? You have one life to live. Why
Yeah.
settle for something that's just going to bring you so much more misery in the
Yeah.
mundane? Whereas I'd rather have my mundane be peaceful and joyful.
I always said in my book, I said that, life it can be difficult and you're gonna have storms, but like, your partner should be the life preserver in the storm, not the cause of the storm itself. And so if you're trying to really
Yeah,
make something work that's just bringing you constant turmoil and stress, like, it's time to evaluate what place that relationship has in your life.
I agree. I think like if it drains your energy, then evaluate why is it draining your energy and decide what you want to do about it. And like I think relationships should be fulfilling, right? Like that's the whole point.
Yeah. And I mean,
Um
what I love about, though, just to make it like a sidebar point to that, is like, I've listened to your podcast, and from what I've listened to, I know, like, you and your husband have grown and done that work together. And so I do want to make that point that, like, our partners aren't always going to see eye to eye with us, but it's about having a partner that is willing to do the work with you. And you
mhm.
have that in your partnership, which I love. And I in my first marriage, like, that was not the situation. And so, I think it's hard for some people to determine, like, should I stay or should I go? Well, truly, it's about if you have a partner who's willing to do that work with you.
Yeah, or maybe not even like to the point of the work because I definitely had to do more work, I would say, because I wasn't emotionally regulated versus my husband was always like emotionally mature. Whereas like
Mhm.
at first, I was like, "I'm doing all this work. You're not doing anything. This isn't working. I don't wanna be the only one doing the work." But then what I realized is that long as he has a sense of accountability, where, like, how like, he just processes things quicker than I do, right? So, like, if he is able to hold himself accountable when I bring something up, and he isn't just blaming me and saying, "Oh, you're being emotional," or "You're being irrational,"
Mhm.
or, like, "You need to go figure that," like, I see that in relationships, I'm like, "Oh, that's the difference." Like, I
Yes.
think if your partner is willing to hold themselves accountable and listen to what you're saying and not just make you feel unheard. I think for me, that was my biggest thing. As long as you make me feel heard, you don't need to validate me. I can validate myself, but I just need respect that what I'm saying matters, even if I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something that I read on your website, which I love, and I really want us to dive into it. You say, it's not about finding the right partner. It's about finding our true self underneath all the stories, imprints, and stuff this life has us buried under. I'd love for you to go deeper into that.
In my book, I do talk a lot about, partnerships and not settling. And, you can have these really fulfilling romantic partnerships. But at the end of the day, what it's about to me is doing the healing work to uncover, like I said, those imprints and things that life has imposed upon you, to find, to get back to that core of who you really are. Because I believe that, we are whole, and the healing work is that journey back to ourselves. And so at the end of the day, that's the journey that's most important.
I love that you just said that because I literally have it written here when I read your story about 5-year-old you that wanted to be a farmer and you just like abandoned this like dream and then you like revisited it. And it's so true to the entire purpose of the healing journey, where it's not to get to this evolved version of you. I think it is to return home to that inner child joy and see the world in these like big, beautiful colors and see it as magical. And then balancing that with the wisdom that you have as an adult.
Yeah, how amazing is that that you get to choose, right? Like now that you're an adult, you can say, okay, well, these things happened to me and I was taught these beliefs and I was told this is how I have to be, but now I get to choose what wisdom and lessons I want to take with me and also, return to that part of myself that I've always had that is my true self.
When it came to your entire writing process, do you feel like when you were writing your book, was it therapeutic for you? Was it hard? Or do you feel like it was like healing? I don't know. What was your experience?
The writing of my book, it was super therapeutic for me and it came out like really quickly. And the hard part has been I've probably been finished with this book for close to 2 years now. I hate to even say that. And
Wow.
I turned 40 next month and I was like, okay, I've got to quit waiting for like the right publisher or the right this or the right circumstances. So I just decided I'm going to publish this book and I'm going to do it for myself for my 40th birthday because, I need to get this message out into the world. And if there's 5 people who read the book and it resonates with them and it changes their life, then awesome. If it's more, it's more, but I need to quit sitting on it and I need to get the book out there.
It's so cool. Like that's like what I said about this podcast because it was the same thing where it's like, do I just keep waiting for the perfect moment? Do I build my audience first before I start? And it was that same feeling inside where it's kind of like I get to choose when I want to use my voice. I get to choose when I want my message out in the world, and I don't need to wait for like permission or the perfect moment to do so.
Yeah, make it happen. And, we have these experiences and we go through the things we go through. And, we do a disservice when we're not sharing that with others and we can help people who are, going on that journey, but just a little bit further behind than we are on the journey.
Isn't that why we do what we do and go through what we go through? And that's what makes us the healers that we are, right?
Absolutely.
Did you like always know you wanted to be an author or did it just come to you?
Well, I think this goes back to take it full circle to the inner child stuff because I wrote all the time as a kid. And I remember even writing my first poem when I was in second grade and the teacher brought us outside and she had us walk through nature and she had us come back in and do a writing exercise about it. And, I remember I wrote this poem and she read it out loud to the class. And I used to participate in young authors and I quit for a long time doing any kind of writing. So I do think that it was always a part of me. It was a passion of mine. And so probably me writing this book is, again, part of that healing journey of getting back to the things that, light me up and bring me joy. And so I had never really thought about it like that. But when you asked it that way, I was like, yeah, I used to write all of the time. And then I stopped and that, I picked it back up for sure.
And how does it feel now that you're done and it's like almost out in the world? Are you nervous at all? Is there any anxiety there?
Or like I feel like I've really made myself vulnerable. And so that's the part that's a little nerve wracking is because, I would like to continue writing, but no matter what I write, I feel like this will have been my most personal piece and I'm putting it out there first. So that's probably really backwards compared to maybe what a lot of people do. But I think it's cool because, I'm turning 40 and this is like the collection of my wisdom and experiences and things that I've learned so far in my life. And so for that, like, I'm just really excited to get it out there and make it happen.
I cannot wait to read the whole thing. Like I'm kind of hooked already with what I've already read. It's just so real and honest and vulnerable and funny. So funny. Like I was like finding myself laughing and crying and all of the feels. It was awesome.
Oh, I love hearing that. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, of course. If you were to embark a little bit of wisdom for my listeners today, for those that feel like their marriage is just okay and they may be wondering if there's more out there, what piece of advice would you have for them?
The advice that I would have would just be to start your own healing journey or continue on your own healing journey. Just take the next step. I think, as we do that, things will start to unfold for us. And we don't know what the next step may look like, but just just, again, start journaling for 15 minutes, schedule that therapy appointment you've been putting off, spend some time outside alone in nature, start focusing on doing your work. And if it's a partnership that's going to work, your partner will come alongside you and meet you on that journey. And so I think we can't control other people, but we can control ourselves. And so I would say to start that journey first with yourself, and let things unfold from there.
I think that's beautiful, and it goes so well with everything that you have in your website. So if you go to Devon's website, it's healingandhomesteading.com. She has a ton of incredible resources for people if they're starting their healing journey, or if you want to go deeper into your healing journey, everything from like books to Instagram accounts to websites and resources. It is magic. It is like magic in one place. So if you guys are curious about starting your healing journey or going deeper, check out her website. I'll link it below as well. Thank
Now that
you.
we're connected, you're going to have to be definitely added as a healing resource.
Oh, that is so sweet. Thank you so much. Do you have anything to add for the audience before we close out this episode?
I think that we covered the full round, and I think I would just leave everyone with, let's just take that next step. You don't have to have the whole path marked out for you, but just what is the next right step for you?
Yeah.
Take it today.
And the more that you learn how to master the unknown, the more fun life gets. And just like let go of the plan and the future and just live life one day at a time in the moment.
Yeah, it can get a little messy, but it leads to beautiful destinations.
Oh my gosh, isn't that the truth?